Hold on to your wallets because we are breaking our budget ceiling rules to give you the most lean and mean combo of RTX 5080 with a Ryzen 7 9800X3D. How much of our budget are we breaking, and is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, we're gonna show you right here, right now on Robeytech. We're back with a budget build that falls outside of our key non-negotiable price. However, we wanted to answer a single burning question. How much money do I need to spend to get the best gaming experience without having to take out a mortgage? And you know what? We're not gonna make you wait for the answer. The answer is about $2,050 before taxes and shipping. Now, before you throw our budget building rulebook at us, we know that this video is going to be a little bit different. However, we wanted to do this build to show you that it is possible to build a lean but powerful modern gaming PC with room to grow. And don't worry, we're gonna still talk about part recommendations, show you where to get the best deals, and reference the live stream for step-by-step instructions on how to build this machine for yourself. Now let's talk about the rules. And like I said, we're breaking one of the rules, but we're gonna be sticking with the rest. We'll be using our 5-point weight system to show how this budget build is balanced within the following categories. Price, or how well did we use the budget, and since we're breaking the budget, our focus is going to be on our thriftiness. CPU power, GPU power, parts and features, things like RGB, CPU cooler, RAM speeds, SSD performance, and finally, aesthetics. You can watch the step-by-step guide with all the close-up shots, explanations of what we're doing and why, and to help you build PCs like this one for yourself at Robeytech Live, which you can pull up in a tab, but we're gonna give you a breakdown in this video as well. And make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next budget build stream. This build is special in a lot of ways because it takes the best gaming CPU on the market, the Ryzen 9800X3D, and the latest and amazing for most gamers GPU, the RTX 5080, and it pairs them together. More on that most gamers bit later. Now, we realize that these are both hard to find items, but given how good this combo is and how new they both are, this is going to be a good pairing for a while. And as we see prices fluctuate and availability improving, this could be a great starting point for a lot of people. So for our parts, we're gonna walk through them and talk about the 5 categories along the way, starting with the CPU and motherboard. We're using the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D with the Asus TUF Gaming B650 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard. As we mentioned, the Ryzen 7 9800X3D is one of the best gaming CPUs on the market, thanks to its 3D V-Cache and how much games love it. But gamers really love this thing too, so we chose it so that we can take full advantage of our GPU. As for the motherboard, we've made a calculated decision to drop down from a more modern X870 or B850 board to a B650. With AMD support for backward compatibility with new CPUs and older boards, this allows us to shave a few dollars off of our total. Also, this board, even though it is an Asus board, was competitively priced. So our parts and features and CPU score are going to get a boost from the 9800X3D, while our modest motherboard brings the parts and features score down ever so slightly from being a generation older. As for CPU cooling, we're using the Thermalright Phantom Spirit 120 SE CPU air cooler. This thing has a chunky heat sink to help draw heat out of our CPU, 2 120mm fans to help push air through, addressable RGB, and a price under $40. So this thing fires on a number of cylinders, giving us style points and helping our budget. But just make sure you install it the right side up, not upside down. Remember guys, words go on the right. Now if you're worried about RAM clearance, don't worry. We're using 32 gigs of G.Skill 6000 Megatransfer CL36 DDR5 RAM. And we found that it's just enough clearance to fit. Now this is one place where you could have saved a little if you wanted to go with like a non-RGB kit, or spend a few dollars more if you wanted to go a little bit lower latency on the RAM. So it doesn't do a whole lot to bump up our parts and features, but we can add a little bit to the aesthetic score for keeping things RGB enabled. Now moving on to our GPU, we're using the Founders Edition RTX 5080. This GPU is literally where half of our budget is going. It's a $1,000 GPU, but this thing is both a monster with raw 1440 performance, and it has access to NVIDIA's DLSS 4 multi-frame generation, which we actually think is pretty magical unless you like frames raw instead of well done. But wait, Roby, You might be thinking, why are you using this as a 1440p GPU and not a 4K one? Well, the 5080 is technically capable of running games at 4K, but we're still figuring out whether or not that's a viable option with multi-frame generation at 4K. Realistically, you want your raw frames to be as far north of 60 frames per second as possible for your multi-frame generation to really be a hit and have a great experience. So as far as the scoring goes, GPU power is going to be just about as max as it can be, while our budget kind of takes a hit. That being said though, this is one of the least expensive 5080s. Now, I'd like to say that this GPU gives us some style points because the design of the Founders Edition cards are just so pretty. So moving on to storage, we're going to be using the Team Group MP44L 2TB NVMe drive. We've used the 1TB version of this drive in some of our previous budget builds, and we love that it balances performance and budget with read and write speeds that exceed most entry-level PCI 4 drives. We also went with 2 TB because let's face it, if you're going to leverage your 5080 to play cinematic titles, you're going to need some storage space. Since this is a really lean build, we feel really good about recommending it. But as far as parts and features goes, we're not going to take away points. It's a fast drive and great for the price. Now for our case, we have the Phanteks XT Pro Ultra. We love this case for so many reasons. It comes with 4 pre-installed RGB fans, it's easy to build inside of, it offers excessive airflow, and the price is amazing for budget builds. We've seen the XT Pro Ultra on sale for as low as $70, so this case helps our budget. It's functional and it also looks really good. Finally, for our PSU, we're actually using the 850 watt Thermaltake Tough Power GF3. Now, we've used the GF1 before, but this PSU is an ATX 3.0 power supply. It gives us a built-in connection for our GPU, and that's awesome. So when we put this all together, the total cost before taxes and shipping comes in at around $2,050. So if we're gonna score it in our 5 categories, here's where we'd land. CPU power maxed, GPU power maxed, parts and features lands in the high to middle range. As for aesthetics, we think it turned out great, so this puts it in the upper mid-range. And finally, for our price score, well, we didn't know that you could get negative points, but really the score here is up for you to decide. Yes, we broke our $1,000 rule with a $1,000 GPU. However, we kept this thing super lean and made just about every dollar count as best as possible. All right, so let's talk about performance. Now, if you watched a bunch of 5080 reviews, a lot of these numbers are going to look familiar since a lot of reviewers use the 9800X3D and the RTX 5080 combo for testing. Now, the numbers we're going to show you, by the way, they're the averages without DLSS, multi-frame generation, or ray tracing. Starting with God of War Ragnarok, averaged around 171 frames per second at 1440p and 117 at 4K. In Cyberpunk 2077, the average was around 146 frames per second at 1440p and around 80 FPS at 4K. Hogwarts Legacy averaged 144 at 1440p and 100 at 4K. Both Dying Light 2 and A Plague Tale Requiem averaged 137 at 1440p and 78 at 4K. In Jedi Survivor, this combo averaged 127 at 1440p and 69 at 4K. In The Last of Us, averages were around 124 frames per second at 1440p and 72 at 4K. Marvel Rivals averaged 108 at 1440p. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 averaged just under 136 at 1440p and 65 at 4K. Starfield averaged 91 at 1440p and 65 at 4K. And finally, Star Wars Outlaws averaged 73 at 1440p and 42 at 4K. Again, 1440p is going to be great with this machine, and that's before we turn on ray tracing, DLSS, or multi-frame generation. It's all about that core raw frame rate. Here's some data for a few games, but I want to zero in on 3 specifically. Alan Wake 2, Black Myth Wukong, and Cyberpunk 2077 are all graphically intensive games, and as you can see, they land north of 60 FPS at 1440p. These are all games that either have or will be updated to support DLSS multi-frame generation, not to mention that the other 70 plus titles that will be seeing this feature added in the near future. Now, gaming performance data is great, but how did our air cooler handle the 9800X3D, and was our GPU starving for air? While at idle, the 9800X3D hovered around 49 degrees, but under full CPU load, we saw an average of 84 degrees Celsius. As far as the RTX 5080, during a brutal run of Furmark, the thermal average hit around 68 degrees Celsius, and that was without playing around with a special fan curve. As for gaming temps, we averaged around 56 degrees on our GPU and 63 degrees on our CPU in Cyberpunk at 1440p. In Hogwarts Legacy, we saw similar temp averages, 57 on the GPU and 60 on the CPU, and in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, 55 on the GPU and 62 on the CPU. So, put your fears to bed about using an air cooler with the 9800X3D. Honestly, this case gets so much air that it's going to feed both air coolers and AIOs really, really well. Now, with these numbers and with the build experience, we have a few comments that are worth mentioning, especially if you're looking to follow up on our build guide. Now, there are two elephants in the room with this build. Elephant number one is the fact that we broke our $1,000 budget rule. But you already knew that, so with that one, let's talk about elephant two, which has a close relationship with elephant one. At the time of this video, 50 series GPUs were nearly impossible to get your hands on, especially the Founders Edition cards like we used inside of this build. While we are confident that the shortage will take time to end, please do not pay scalper prices to build this PC for yourself. It's not worth it. This PC is worth $2,050, no more. Well, okay, that's what you should pay, but maybe a little bit more with tariffs, but say it with me, MSRP. The other thing here is that this build is a baseline, and you don't have to use a Founders Edition RTX 5080 here or a 5080 at all. You could wait to see what AMD has to offer with the RX 9070 XT. You could wait for an RX 5070 or 5070 Ti, or heck, you could throw an Intel Arc B580 in here. Though, I gotta be honest, with this CPU, that'd be weird. The point is that we wanted to put together a guide for the leanest machine possible so that when people can get their hands on the GPU they're looking for at MSRP, this video was right here waiting. Other than that, there aren't really any other quirks to talk about other than the mountain of zip ties that came with this beautiful PC case. Thank you, Fantex. And with that, we'll close out this rundown of the Robeytech Lean and Mean budget build featuring the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and the NVIDIA RTX 5080. If you want a central resource for this build, pop on over to robeytech.com. We have all the details, product links, and whatever you want to take in the plunge. And don't forget our in-depth step-by-step live streams. The video for that is also on that page. And please let us know if you build it yourself. And join the Robeytech Discord if you have any questions along the way over at discord.gg/Robeytech. If this configuration doesn't quite match what you're looking for, we have more coming soon, and we'll be building these systems live on both twitch.tv/Robeytech or over at Robeytech Live right here on YouTube, and we'll have breakdown videos like this one right here on the main Robeytech channel. So slap that subscribe button with that like button and ring the notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here at Robeytech. Thank you so much for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.